What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Today I want to talk about, without a doubt, the most under the radar and deck with the most potential right now. The reason I say that is because after playing at regionals this Saturday, obviously I learned more about the format when I actually get to play in it. But I played against this deck a couple of times, and I think that this deck has so much untapped potential. It is tier 1 in my opinion. It's just the fact that no one is playing the deck, and it's getting absolutely no attention. So it can look a lot weaker than it actually is. That is heroes, obviously. And when I say heroes, I'm talking like an Angel Flores hero beat deck. I'm not talking about that Bubble Man bullshit, that trash, that garbage. I'm just talking about anti-meta hero beat, summon a bunch of beat sticks, beat your face in, and then use a bunch of good anti-meta cards to control the board. When I think about this deck, the reason why I like it right now is because I look at the matchups. The matchups are really in this deck's favor. When you look at the projected tier 1, that being Rabbit, Insectors, and Windup, and quite frankly, after playing at the regional, I'm not even sure that Insectors should be in that category. This deck is vastly overrated. But especially the best deck of the format, which isn't even debatable, that's Rescue Rabbit. Or Dino Rabbit, excuse me. This deck has a very, very good matchup against the deck. In fact, you can actually take Angel Flores' performance at the two YCSs in California, and you can use those as the blueprints of how you should be running this deck and how your matchup versus Rabbit is going to be. Because of the fact that Rabbit runs a whole lot like Six Samurai. It plays to protect the Lagia game, and hopefully we can make another Lagia, and we can just control from there. Here's the problem with that, and it's Rescue Rabbit's, it's pretty much Dino Rabbit's only weakness, is the fact that if you can get a big monster on the board, 2,500 or up, the deck can really struggle because then Lagia and Doka become a hell of a lot less effective, and they're not really the best options at that point. Heroes can do that exceptionally well because, number one, they have Miracle Fusion. Miracle Fusion lets them put things like the Shining, and it lets them put things like Ab-Zero on the board very, very easily. Often, you know, it's just a 1-for-1, and against a deck like Rabbit, you can put them on the defensive, even so much so that a lot of times it can just lock the game. A card like Ab-Zero or the Shining, they create monster matchup problems against a deck like Rescue Rabbit, and Ab-Zero presents huge problems for Insectors because if you kill Ab-Zero with with Hornet's effect or whatever, you're going to be losing your board if you're playing Insectors. With Rabbit, not only can your Evolzers not get over it in battle, but even when they kill it, then it blows up the field. So you're now looking at having to use Doka, somehow getting over it in battle, and then having to use Doka's effect. So, you know, the hero player can usually counter because Doka doesn't offer the same level of protection that something like Lagia does. And if you can get a 2,600 Shining on the board, then, I mean, it can be automatic win because, again, the Evolzers can't attack over that. Even if they have a Forbidden Lance, neither one of the Evolzers can get over that. In fact, all Lagia can do is suicide. So you can see how your big monsters, your big heroes, you know, stuff like Nova Master, Tornado can be just nightmares for Rabbit. The second thing I got to talk about, and a very big reason why I like this deck, is its chainable monster destruction. I would actually say that Heroes right now, Hero Beat, probably has the best arsenal of chainable monster destruction. I'm talking about things like Hero Blast, things like Super Poly, things like Gemini Spark. What these do is these break up plays. When your opponent summons Rescue Rabbit and they get 2 Kabazars, bam, activate Hero Blast. Okay, well, you're not making a Lagia this turn. You know, activate Gemini Spark. You're not making Lagia this turn, or wait for them to make that Lagia, then activate Super Poly, drop a Nova Master on them. You know, they can't counter, they can't activate Max C, they can't Solemn Warning, they can't do anything. These cards are just practically gold in the Rabbit and in the Insector matchup. In fact, I would actually say that this deck has a problem with Insectors until I really started to think about these. I mean, if you can squeeze in, obviously you're going to probably run 3 Gemini Sparks, maybe 2 Hero Blasts, and 2 Super Polys. This is how essentially you can beat Insectors very easily. It's just every single time they summon Centipede or they summon Dragonfly, you wait for them to activate their effect, and then you just chain one of these, and you'll control the game to where you just have a 1900 on the field swinging, and after a few turns, they won't really have any plays and they'll just lose. Now, the one matchup that I do think can be a little dicey are windups, because the way that windups play are they try and attack your field as a secondary win condition. They attack your hand first. This means that cards like Snowman Eater and Grand Mole, good standalone monsters, which is something that I think a lot of hero players have lost focus on, won't be as effective in this match. You know, these cards, Snowman Eater and Grand Mole, these will be absolutely amazing against the Rabbit matchup. In fact, if you look at Angel Flores' deck, when he had to play against 6 Samurai, and he built his deck to counter that, as he thought that that would be the majority of what he played. These were 2 key cards. You know, this one in the side deck, this one in the main deck. Or, no, I think he mained Snowman Eater. But cards like this wouldn't be that effective against windup. That's another thing I wanted to talk about, is just having a bunch of good standalone monsters. I know that people can get, I guess, too much in awe of Miracle Fusion and the good possibilities that, you know, the card offers, but it shouldn't come at the cost of consistency. You know, things like E-Hero Ocean and E-Hero Ice Age, they're nice cards and everything, but they're not cards that if you put them on the board by themselves because you have a terrible hand or because you're top decking, you're going to feel good about. If you and your opponent are top decking and you top Snowman Eater and you set it, you feel great. You know, with your opponent only having a couple of outs, like, you know, they can get a Doka on the board, like they top Rabbit, make Doka. Obviously, they can kill it then. Or, you know, they top a Dragonfly and they have Hornet in the graveyard, obviously. But outside of that, you're almost certainly going to get a 1-for-1, and chances are you can get a +1 off of this. This feels like a really good standalone card. The same thing with Grand Mole. You simply poke at your opponent, and then when they top a monster, you bounce. And, you know, then you decide where you want to go from there. Good standalone cards mean that you don't have to worry about your monsters dying. You don't have to worry about, you know, giving your opponent excess advantage, because you have to protect things like that when you could have just let your opponent tack into that Snowman, let your opponent tack into that Grand Mole, you know. So those are things that I definitely think that you should talk about. But yeah, the main, my main synopsis of this video is that heroes are very underrated because A, they have a very good matchup against Rabbit, you know, because they can get big monsters out before it puts Rabbit on the defensive. It really hurts Rabbit's win condition. Secondly, chainable monster destruction, which is the absolute death of Insectors. Insectors have 6 power cards, that being the Centipedes and the Dragonflies. If you can stop those going off, from going off with warnings or, you know, Hero Blasts, Evacs, Gemini Sparks, that's essentially how you beat the deck. You let their Hornet sit in their hand, or you let their Hornet sit in the graveyard, and you don't let the deck ever get rolling. And then third, I think that this matchup can definitely be manageable. Obviously, you might want to do some side decking, but if you looked at your hero, if you looked at your hero lineup, you took something like this, you added 3 Thunder Kings, which obviously I would, that can make this deck pretty manageable. You know, especially when you have your chainable traps to potentially break up their plays, or your Max C's to, you know, to help you out. I definitely wouldn't run this deck without Max C. That would just be my prerogative. So thank you guys. I would say I've got a regionals coming up at the end of the week. I'm not gonna run this deck, but I am gonna run this deck before the end of the format. So let me know what you guys think about heroes and if they have any untapped potential that you guys want to talk about. Thank you, and do me a favor and click an ad.